Nathan Reynolds stood silently in front of the foggy mirror inside the restroom of a small gas station on the outskirts of town. The reflection staring back at him was nearly unrecognizable. The expensive suit that had once been his armor in every boardroom was now replaced with a wrinkled blue uniform shirt. A crooked name tag read Mark Davis, a name that had no connection to the empire he had proudly built. A faded baseball cap covered his once perfectly styled hair, and 3 days' worth of stubble roughened his jawline. Non-prescription glasses completed the look, giving him the appearance of an ordinary, almost invisible man. "You look like a wreck," Nathan muttered as he adjusted the too-tight collar and sighed, but he knew this clumsy disguise was the key to uncovering the truth. As the founder and CEO of Reynolds Fuel, a network of 38 gas stations spanning 3 states, Nathan had once been confident that his company was running smoothly, but the latest quarterly reports painted a troubling picture. Employee turnover was at an all-time high, customer complaints were surging, and profit margins at several locations had dropped in ways that didn't make sense. Station 17, once the crown jewel of the network, had now become the epicenter of instability. Nathan could no longer sit back. He needed to see with his own eyes what was happening behind the sanitized reports. A feeling of unease crept over him as he reached for the restroom door, as if beyond it lay not just a day of work, but a confrontation with the shadows lurking within the empire he had built. The convenience store inside the station buzzed with activity. Under the harsh glare of fluorescent lights, faces of rushing customers and weary employees alike bore signs of exhaustion and sleeplessness. Nathan took a deep breath and walked toward the register, where a stocky man with meticulously combed hair was giving orders to 2 young cashiers. "Hi, I'm Mark Davis. Today's my first day," Nathan said, bowing his head slightly to soften the natural authority in his voice. The man turned, his expression shifting quickly from stern to polite. "Oh, the transfer from District 6, right? Derek Owens, assistant manager here." His handshake was firm, almost painfully so, like a test. "Welcome to the top-performing station in the Reynolds system." Nathan forced a slight smile, hiding his discomfort. "Thanks for the opportunity." "No need for the sir. We keep it casual here, but efficient," Derek said with a squint, then turned toward a young woman busy at the register. "Emily, wrap up with that customer and show Mark the ropes." Emily nodded quickly, her shoulders instinctively tightening like she was bracing for impact. When Derek walked away, the tension around the counter noticeably eased. Nathan took note but said nothing. Emily was thin, with dark circles under her eyes and slightly trembling hands as she tucked a strand of messy brown hair behind her ear. "I'm Emily," she said softly, her voice lacking energy. "I'll show you how to use the system and what to do around here." For the next hour, Emily patiently explained everything: how to enter inventory, use the point-of-sale system, and interact with customers. But what struck Nathan most was how she never once mentioned customer satisfaction, a core value in all the training materials he had personally approved. Every instruction she gave was centered around a single, unspoken rule: don't upset Derek. If the register's even $1 off at the end of your shift, she whispered when no customers were around, he'll mark it as theft. 3 strikes and you're fired. Nathan clenched his fists. "So, no way to dispute it?" "There's no discussion, that's just how it is here." Before he could respond, Derek reappeared from the small back office. "Emily, why's there a line? Mark can figure it out on his own. Around here, if you can't keep up, you don't last." Without giving Emily a chance to reply, Derek shoved Nathan toward the register like he was some nameless rookie. Emily hurried to the coffee station to assist a customer, apologizing under her breath. Nathan, the very person who had once designed the POS system, now fumbled with it under Derek's scrutinizing gaze. When he accidentally voided a transaction, Derek stepped in with a fake smile. "Sorry about that, sir. New trainee?" But the moment the customer left, The smile vanished. Another mistake like that and it's coming out of your paycheck. Nathan was beginning to see that something deeper was rotting from within his organization. During a short break, he struck up a conversation with a young man stocking the coolers. "How long have you worked here?" "6 months," the guy answered, glancing toward the office. "Longest one here after Emily. 3 people quit just last month." Derek's got this performance management style of his. Before Nathan could ask more, the employee's radio crackled. "Mike, car wash, now." Mike sighed and gave Nathan a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "Good luck, man. Around here, we all need it." Nathan stood in place, watching Mike disappear behind the cooler doors. A wave of guilt and dread welled up inside him. Maybe the empire he'd once been so proud of had grown into something he no longer recognized or controlled. That afternoon, the tension in the store felt like a taut wire ready to snap. Still undercover as Mark Davis, Nathan noticed how Emily grew increasingly anxious every time she glanced at her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly that she dropped a roll of coins, sending quarters skittering across the cold tile floor. The faint sound seemed to echo louder than it should have, as if it had summoned a predator. Derek stormed out of his office, eyes like ice. "Jesus, Emily, can you get through one shift without causing a disaster?" "I'm sorry," she whispered, bending down to gather the scattered coins. "It won't happen again." "It better not," Derek hissed, his voice dropping to a threatening murmur. "Remember that little incident with the register? I haven't forgotten. Don't give me a reason to start a second file." Nathan stood frozen, the blood in his veins going cold. Emily, already pale, now looked like a statue carved from grief. In that moment, Nathan realized this wasn't just a gas station. It was a battlefield. And the wounds here weren't physical, but psychological and deep. When Derek left, Nathan knelt down beside her. "Are you okay?" Emily didn't look at him. "I'm fine," she said automatically, but her trembling lips told a different story. Nathan had originally planned to spend a full week undercover, gradually collecting information. But Derek's predatory behavior, his smug enjoyment of instilling fear, made it clear Nathan might not have that much time. The next day started with a staff meeting that felt more like a military drill. Derek paced in front of the team, clipboard in hand, firing off numbers like commands. Yesterday's metrics were acceptable but not good enough. Corporate expects growth, not maintenance. "Emily, your transactions per hour dropped by 12%. Emily stared at the floor, her knuckles whitening as she gripped the edge of her chair. "I'm sorry." "I'll do better." "Good. During your break, I want you to do the inventory count. Maybe it'll help you focus better," Derek said with a smug smile. The words sounded like a suggestion, but the tone made it clear it was a punishment in disguise. Nathan sat quietly, noticing how Emily's knuckles had turned pale from gripping the edge of her seat too tightly. He knew this wasn't strict management. It was calculated, corrosive abuse. The rest of the morning dragged on with monotonous transactions. Nathan watched the clock, counting down to Emily's lunch break. He needed to talk to her alone. He needed the truth. At exactly 1:15 p.m., Derek nodded toward Emily. "Inventory, stockroom." Mark, man the register. Emily disappeared behind the back door. Nathan continued checking out customers, but his eyes kept drifting to the back of the store. 15 minutes later, Derek left his office with a stack of papers and headed toward the stockroom. 5 minutes after that, he returned, wearing a self-satisfied smirk, like a man who had just secured another secret. But 30 minutes passed, and Emily still hadn't returned. A knot of unease twisted in Nathan's stomach. He turned to Mike. "Can you cover me for a minute? I need to use the restroom." Mike hesitated, glancing nervously toward Derek's office. "Make it quick." Nathan quietly slipped past the restroom area and approached the stockroom. He stopped cold. From behind the door came the faint, muffled sound of sobbing. Quiet, restrained, and heartbreaking. He knocked gently. "Emily?" "It's Mark. Are you okay?" Silence. Then a trembling voice answered, barely audible. I'm fine, just doing inventory." The tone was too fragile to hide the pain. "Mind if I come in? I need to grab some receipt paper." Nathan slowly opened the door and stepped into the dim, cramped room. In the far corner, Emily was sitting on an overturned milk crate, her face red and streaked with tears. She quickly shoved a crumpled piece of paper into her pocket when she saw him. "Sorry," she muttered. "I'll get back out there. No rush." Nathan sat down beside her, speaking gently. "What happened? Did Derek—" She cut in quickly, but the panic in her eyes betrayed her. "It's just family stuff." "The same family stuff you've been checking your phone for all morning." Emily stayed quiet. A moment later, she let out a bitter, broken laugh. "No one can help me. That's the real problem. Try me," Nathan said quietly. "I'm here now." The silence between them thickened. Finally, Emily reached into her pocket and with shaking hands handed him the paper. Nathan unfolded it. It was a printout from the point-of-sale system, with several transactions highlighted in yellow. At the bottom, scribbled in messy handwriting, $750.00 by Friday. Or the footage of you stealing from Register 1 goes to HQ and the cops. Nathan stared at the note, then looked at Emily, hunched over, bracing for judgment. But instead of anger or doubt, his eyes darkened with sorrow and rising fury. Not toward her, but toward the system he had created and allowed predators like Derek to exploit. The fire inside Nathan was no longer just rage. It was a bitter, undeniable awakening. "And we didn't steal anything," he said, his voice heavy. "Of course not." Emily's voice cracked. "Derek's the one skimming from the registers. He's been doing it for months. When the company flagged discrepancies in the financial reports, he changed the timestamps to make it look like it happened during my shifts. People actually walks with me. You." Emily inhaled shakily, like just speaking the truth was painful. "Because I'm a single mom. My son is 6. I can't afford to lose this job, and I definitely can't afford to have theft on my record." A fresh tear slid down her cheek, shimmering like a scar of... Nathan was still, his jaw clenched. Emily wasn't the first. This isn't the first time he's done this, is it?" Emily nodded slowly. "At least 3 others that I know of. Jasmine quit last month, instead of paying. Tyler paid half, and still left. Derek told everyone they were fired for stealing." She glanced anxiously at the door, her voice falling to a whisper, as if afraid her words might summon the predator. "If people knew he was crooked, why hasn't anyone reported him?" "They did," she said with a hollow laugh. "The district manager's his cousin. Any complaints to HR magically disappear or get twisted against whoever filed them. One guy tried. Now he has a police report for theft, filed by Derek." The truth hit Nathan like ice water. The company he had poured his sweat and principles into had become a toxic breeding ground for abuse. The reports he read back at headquarters looked clean, but beneath that polished veneer was rot, exploitation, and fear. "My rent's due next week. My son needs food. I make $13.50 an hour. Where am I supposed to get $750.00 by Friday?" She whispered, almost as if talking to herself. "You're not giving him a single dime," Nathan said firmly, voice like steel. Emily looked up, startled. "You don't understand. He has the footage." "Footage that's probably doctored," Nathan interrupted. "Listen to me. Guys like Derek survive on fear. But there's always a way to fight back. You just don't have to fight alone." Emily shook her head, lips pressed tight. "You've only been here 2 days. I've watched him destroy lives for 2 years. Then maybe," Nathan said gently, "it's time someone stopped him." He pulled out his phone and extended a hand. "Can I see that note again?" Emily handed it over, still unsure. Nathan photographed it, making sure every detail was captured. The company header, Derek's handwriting, the amount, the threat. "What are you doing?" she asked, panic creeping into her voice. "Won't know. Not yet. But you need to trust me. Can you do that?" Emily studied his face for a long moment. For the first time since they met, her eyes weren't filled with fear, but with a flicker of hope. "Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me." Nathan smiled faintly. "Because I've seen too many men like Derek walk away clean. And because no one deserves to face this alone." A sharp knock suddenly pounded against the stockroom door. Emily. "Break's over!" Derek's voice sliced through the air like a whip. Emily shoved the note back into her pocket and stood abruptly. As she reached for the door handle, Nathan gently caught her wrist. "Think about it," Nathan said softly. "You're not alone anymore." She paused. This time, when she looked into Nathan's eyes, she didn't look away. In that moment, the faint flicker of hope turned into something real. A spark. On the third day, Nathan returned to Station 17 with a completely different mindset. No longer just a covert observer, he now felt a personal mission burning inside him, a duty to rescue the truth before it could be buried for good. The night before, he had torn through his company's own anti-fraud protocols, policies he had once signed off on himself, now manipulated by dirty hands. He had also made several discreet phone calls to a few trusted executives, people he knew would take action without asking too many questions. "Morning, Mark." Mike greeted him at the back door, pulling Nathan out of his thoughts. "Watch yourself today. Derek's in a mood. Word is, he's been here since 5 a.m. going over inventory reports." "Another discrepancy?" Nathan asked, hanging his jacket in the cramped employee locker. Mike lowered his voice. "Not big enough to report, but enough to make him snap. You know what it means when he starts auditing inventory." Nathan nodded. In his mind, the puzzle pieces were locking into place. If Derek was altering product data too, then the scope of his fraud was far bigger than Nathan had initially feared. That morning's pre-shift meeting played out like a twisted comedy. Derek was smiling unusually wide, as if he just landed $1 million deal. "Good news, team. Our efficiency is up 7% this quarter. Corporate's pleased. Keep it up, and there might be bonuses in your future." But no one in the room smiled. The staff exchanged wary glances. Nathan caught Emily's eyes for a moment, but she quickly looked away. The entire day, Nathan moved quietly throughout the station, positioning himself to observe everything. He volunteered for trash duty to gain mobility. He offered to restock the coffee station just to get a look at the angles of the surveillance cameras. During his lunch break, he sat with Tomas, the veteran maintenance worker who had been there for over a decade. "I've seen 5 managers come and go at this station," Tomas said while chewing on a sandwich, his voice laced with years of fatigue. "Derek's lasted the longest? Not 'cause he's good, 'cause he knows how to bend the rules," Tomas snorted. "The numbers always look perfect, but in reality," he motioned around the cramped break room with its flickering light and busted vending machine. "Equipment stays broken, repair requests get denied, but somehow the profits keep rising. New audits? There are, twice a year. But somehow Derek always knows when they're coming. By then, everything's spotless. Reports?" Nathan nodded slowly. The anger inside him had transformed into a cold, determined resolve. Derek wasn't getting away with it. Not this time. His stomach twisted when the name Gary Miller came up during their conversation. Gary, the district manager, was someone Nathan had personally promoted, partly due to consistently perfect performance reports, partly because of a bond of trust. That trust now felt as fragile as a sandcastle at high tide. "Has anyone ever reported anything unusual?" Nathan asked. Demas' expression darkened. "Remember Alicia, the assistant manager before Emily? She found money missing from the register, filed a formal complaint with HR. 2 weeks later, she was fired for falsifying time cards. Her complaint vanished from the system. No follow-up. Who signed off on her termination?" "Gary," Tomas said bluntly. and that was that. He checked his watch and stood. Word of advice, Mark? Keep your head down, do your job, and don't ask questions. That's how people survive around here. Nathan stood still as Tomas walked away. Disgust and regret gnawed at him. The company he once believed represented fairness, integrity, and opportunity had rotted from within, corrupted by the very management structures he had put in place. That afternoon, Nathan offered to help Emily with the cigarette inventory, a task that required 2 people and, more importantly, gave them some privacy. "Have you thought about what I said?" Nathan asked as they counted cartons in the locked stock room. Emily nodded slightly, her voice almost lifeless. "I can't lose this job. But I can't pay Derek either. My son needs his asthma meds. And rent just went up. What if we could prove Derek wasn't just scamming you, but a lot of others too?" Emily paused. A flicker of suspicion crossed her face, but it was mixed with a hint of hope. "But he controls everything, the files, the cameras." "Not all of them," Nathan replied. "The pump cameras are wired directly to corporate security. Station managers don't have access and can't alter them." "How do you know that?" Nathan improvised. "My old station had a drive-off case. Corporate pulled the footage from the pumps. Our manager couldn't even see it." Emily seemed to accept the explanation, though she still shook her head. "The pumps don't show the registers." "No, but they have timestamps. If we can catch Derek altering transaction times, then match that with the uneditable footage, we might have something solid." For the first time, fear faded from Emily's eyes, replaced by focused intent. "There's something else," she added after a hesitant pause. "He doesn't pick targets at random. He has a system. He goes after vulnerable people. Single moms, folks with financial problems, anyone who can't afford a lawyer or can't risk unemployment." Her voice hardened. "I was the one who trained the last 3 people he set up. All single mothers, just like me." Cold fury settled deep in Nathan's chest. This wasn't just abuse. It was calculated predation. "How many?" "At least 7 that I know of in the 2 years I've been here. Some paid part of what he demanded, then quit from the stress. Others fought back and got slapped with theft allegations. Either way, Derek wins, and Gary covers for him." Nathan growled. Emily lowered her gaze. "Worse, last month I overheard them arguing in the office. Gary was demanding his cut." At that moment, Nathan nearly felt sick to his stomach. His business, his father's legacy, had been twisted into a breeding ground for greed, where performance pressure had become a convenient excuse for organized fraud. "Emily, I need copies of those altered records," Nathan said firmly. "They're on his computer," she whispered. "Every day at 2:30 p.m., he steps out for a smoke. I know the password. It's his license plate number." Nathan glanced at the clock. 2:15. The window of opportunity was approaching. By the time they finished the cigarette inventory, a full plan had formed in Nathan's mind. He wasn't just going to expose Derek. He was going to dismantle the entire system that had allowed him to leech off the company for years. "Please out," Emily whispered, peeking through the window. Derek was in the smoking area, cigarette in hand. Same Marlboro as always. "We've got 5 minutes, maybe less." Nathan nodded. Mike was busy with a delivery in the back, and the store was quiet. This was it. They moved swiftly into Derek's office, a cramped room with a desk, a computer, and a filing cabinet. Emily stood watch at the door. Nathan sat at the computer, facing the login screen. Password, XRJ122 is Mustang's license plate. Nathan typed it in. The screen unlocked. Bingo. He navigated directly to a folder labeled Associate Performance. Inside were subfolders for each employee, past and present. He opened Emily's. Clear evidence lit up the screen, reports of cash shortages, all with manipulated timestamps, data that could easily be falsified in the internal system. But what stopped him cold was an Excel file labeled Reconciliation. "Emily?" he whispered. Take a look at this. The USB drive in Nathan's pocket now felt like a ticking bomb, loaded with the proof of Derek's crimes over the last 2 years. Every illicit collection from employees, and a chilling column marked DM share, district manager's share. The total? Over $155,000, 0 cents. And the most disturbing part? A predatory money extortion system disguised as performance management. We've got everything, let's get out of here, Nathan said in a low voice. Wait, he's coming back, Emily hissed, pulling away from the door. Nathan scanned the room, brain working overtime. There was no way they'd make it out in time without getting caught. The files, Emily pointed to the cabinet, pretend we're looking for forms. Just as they crouched down to open a drawer, Derek appeared in the doorway. His expression shifted quickly from surprise to suspicion. What are you two doing in my office? Nathan spoke first, calm and composed. Sorry, Derek, Emily was showing me where the time adjustment forms are. Mike asked me to fix my Tuesday hours. Derek narrowed his eyes. Those forms are kept at the front register, not in here. My mistake, Nathan said with a shrug. Still learning the ropes, Derek stepped aside, motioning for them to leave. His eyes bore into Emily. You should know better, right, Emily? The tone was soft, but laced with menace. Emily nodded and lowered her gaze as she stepped out. Mark back to register 2. Emily, stay. I need a word in private. Nathan hesitated, tension tightening in his chest, but Emily gave a slight nod. She'd be okay. Not yet. It wasn't time to strike. All afternoon, Derek kept Emily on a short leash, assigning her meaningless cleaning tasks just to keep her in his line of sight. When her shift ended, he personally counted her drawer and loudly announced, "Short $20. That's coming out of your check, logged and written up." Nathan waited outside in the parking lot after his shift. When Emily emerged, she looked as pale as a sheet. He knows something's off, she said, voice trembling. He just added another $200. Says it's the price of snooping. It's okay, Nathan reassured her. We have everything we need. Now it's time for phase 2. The next morning, Nathan arrived at the station earlier than usual. A small recording device was hidden in his shirt pocket. He'd spent all night reviewing the stolen files and preparing the next steps. A black SUV with tinted windows sat discreetly at the edge of the lot. A sign he was no longer alone. When the morning huddle began, Nathan positioned himself near Emily. Derek addressed the team, his gaze landing heavily on her. Before we begin, he said, a reminder about company policy on privacy and confidentiality. Unauthorized access to the manager's office will result in immediate termination. The room froze. Emily said nothing, but Nathan noticed her hand tighten into a fist. When the group dispersed, Derek called Emily into his office. Nathan casually drifted closer to the cracked door, the recorder now running. Inside, Derek's voice was sharp and icy. You went digging into my business yesterday, didn't you? No, Derek, I swear. Save it, he snapped. 750's now 950, due tomorrow. And if you're even thinking of reporting me, remember who approves Gary's performance reviews. Your complaint will vanish before you can say, unemployed single mom. Emily's voice shook. I don't have that kind of money. Figure it out, Derek said coldly. Sell something. Take out a payday loan. Or start looking for a new job. With a theft charge already waiting, when Emily stepped out of the office, her face was pale. But this time, her eyes held fire, not just fear. Phase 2 had officially begun. Later that afternoon, Nathan approached Derek with the air of someone harboring a secret. Hey, can we talk in private? He asked, glancing around before slipping into the office behind him. He played his role perfectly, nervous, desperate, and just a little greedy. I overheard the thing with Emily. I'm in a tough spot too, behind on child support. But I know how to be discreet. I know my way around numbers. I studied accounting for a bit. Before life happened, Derek raised an eyebrow. So, what are you proposing? Let me in. I know how to adjust records. I've got nothing to lose. A slow grin spread across Derek's face, the look of a predator who had just caught a fresh fish. Help me with tonight's closing count, he said. Let's see what you've got. That evening, with the store nearly empty, Nathan sat next to Derek as he pulled up the day's sales report. Watch closely, Derek said, logging in and beginning to demonstrate how he falsified the books, modifying transaction times, altering figures, and creating a flawless trail of fake evidence to pin on innocent employees. The best part, Derek said with a smug grin, is that even if someone reports me, the paperwork backs me up. And your cousin Gary handles the rest from corporate? Nathan asked, trying to sound innocent. Derek froze. Who told you that? Nathan realized he'd pushed too far. Just a guess. You mentioned Gary before? Derek stared at him for a long moment. The smile slowly faded from his face, replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. You know what they say about people who make assumptions, Mark. They usually end up in trouble. A chill ran down Nathan's spine. Derek was suspicious. Dawn broke over Station 17. Something felt different today. Eerily quiet. Nathan arrived early, noting that the sleek black SUV was still parked in the far corner of the lot. No one had stepped out. Derek unlocked the front door with a nervous energy, none of his usual arrogance. Everything was in place. He paced around the store, eyes darting to his phone every few seconds, like he was waiting for confirmation from someone above. When the device finally chimed, his face lit up, like he'd just won the lottery. Mark! Emily! He called out, his grin wide and cocky. We're having a special visitor today. Gary Miller, our district manager, is dropping by for a surprise inspection. I expect everyone to be on their absolute best behavior. Emily shot Nathan a worried glance. This wasn't part of the plan. When is he arriving? Nathan asked, pretending to tidy a shelf. Any minute now, Derek replied, adjusting his tie and looking Nathan up and down. Mark, maybe stick to stalking today. Leave the register to the more experienced staff. It sounded polite, but the message was clear. Derek wanted him far from any sensitive areas during the inspection. Nathan nodded, waiting patiently for the moment of truth. At exactly 9:00 IEM, the store bell rang. A tall man in a sharp suit entered, followed by two corporate representatives in business attire. Derek rushed over, flashing his usual fake smile. Gary? What a surprise. I didn't expect the honor of hosting you and your colleagues today. Gary Miller offered a brief nod, his expression colder than usual. Derek, these are representatives from corporate headquarters. They have some matters to discuss. The smile on Derek's face faltered. Of course. My office is open, or would the break room be better? We'll use the break room, one of the representatives replied. And we'll need all employees present. Inside the cramped break room, tension hung thick in the air as everyone gathered. Derek stood at the head of the table beside Gary, trying to maintain his composure, though his forced smile betrayed the unease. Before we begin, the female investigator from headquarters said, we're waiting for one more person. The door opened. An older man entered, poised, composed, dressed in a finely tailored suit. The room fell silent. Derek shot to his feet. Mr. Wilson, the regional vice president. What an incredible honor. Mr. Wilson nodded politely but remained silent. We are conducting a special audit, the female investigator continued, her eyes on her tablet. Our new centralized financial monitoring system has flagged a series of serious discrepancies. Station 17 shows irregularities dating back more than 24 months, coinciding with your appointment as assistant manager, Mr. Derek Owen. The smile on Derek's face turned to stone. I can't explain. There must have been issues with new hires or training. Actually, the woman interrupted, the issues go beyond poor training. We have evidence of falsified records, manipulated inventory reports, and clear indications of extortion against employees under your supervision." Derek went pale. "That's insane. Who made up these accusations? Was it Emily? Or maybe the new guy trying to score points with upper management?" All eyes turned to Nathan, who stood calmly at the back of the room. "Actually, it was me," Nathan said, as he removed his cap and the glasses that had hidden his identity. Derek squinted in confusion. "You're... who?" The female investigator stepped forward. "Allow me to introduce Mr. Nathan Reynolds, CEO and owner of Reynolds Fuel Stations." The room fell into stunned silence. Emily raised a hand to her mouth in shock. Derek staggered back a step, like someone had punched him in the chest. No, this has to be some kind of joke." "No joke," Nathan replied, his voice now carrying the full weight of authority. "I've spent the last week watching firsthand how you run this station. I've seen your blackmail notes, your doctored records, and the spreadsheet tracking the more than $150,000 you stole from my employees." Derek panicked and lunged for the door, but one of the corporate investigators stepped in to block his path. "There's security outside. This will go easier if you cooperate." Derek turned sharply toward Gary, pleading like a drowning man. "Gary, say something. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." Gary Miller slowly raised his head. His face had turned ashen. "It's over, Derek. They have everything. Recordings, documents, even the blackmail texts, including our agreement." Emily finally spoke, her voice clear and steady. "You knew the whole time. When we reported him, you knew." Nathan nodded, not giving Derek a chance to speak again. "Gary will no longer be with the company either. His termination is already processed, and we're finalizing compensation packages for every employee harmed by this scheme." Now, with nothing left to lose, Derek shouted, "None of this proves anything. It's my word against a bunch of lies." No one responded. They didn't need to. The truth, in Nathan's hands, in the files, in the recordings, in the voices of the people standing there, spoke louder than any denial. The entire room watched as Derek was escorted out, no longer a predator with power, but a disgraced figure cast out by the very people he once controlled. That day, the light shining over Station 17 wasn't just morning sun. It was the light of truth, finally brought into the open. Derek nearly shouted in desperation, "All those accusations are lies. You think I'm going to lose to a bunch of minimum wage cashiers?" Nathan didn't respond. He simply nodded at the female investigator, who tapped her tablet. A moment later, Derek's own voice filled the room. "The beauty is, even if someone complains, I've got all the paperwork to prove I'm right." Nathan looked directly at Derek, his voice calm but firm. "That's the recording from yesterday, Derek. 2 full hours of you explaining how your whole scheme works, thinking I was going to be your next accomplice." Derek collapsed into a chair, the final mask ripped away. He had nothing left to hide behind. Nathan turned to Emily gently. "Would you please ask the police officers waiting in the car to come in? I believe they have some questions regarding fraud and extortion." Emily nodded and walked away, her steps quick and decisive, as if she had just reclaimed control over her own life. As the door closed behind her, Nathan faced the still stunned employees. "I owe each of you an apology," he said, his voice steady. "This company was built on ethics and respect. Somehow along the way, those values were lost." He paused, his gaze sweeping across the faces in front of him, faces marked by fear, fatigue, and betrayal. People whose pain he had once overlooked. "And changes. Today," he turned toward Derek, still slumped over, trembling. "You didn't just steal money. You stole people's safety, their dignity, and their trust. And you will be held accountable." Just then, 2 uniformed officers entered. Without needing direction, they approached Derek. He didn't resist. He no longer had the strength. Silently, he let them cuff his hands and lead him away, past the employees he had manipulated for years, who now stood tall, watching justice finally unfold. Nathan glanced at Emily, and for the first time since he met her, she was smiling. 1 month later, Station 17 was unrecognizable. Gone were the dingy walls, the broken chairs, the lifeless air. The break room had been completely renovated. Fresh paint, comfortable furniture, a modern coffee station, and personal lockers for every employee. The space radiated light and warmth, like the beginning of something real. Nathan stood before the team. "Today isn't just the grand reopening of Station 17, he said. It's the start of something new across all of Reynolds fuel stations." Beside him stood Emily, now proudly wearing her assistant manager badge. Her hair was neatly styled, the dark circles under her eyes gone. In their place was the focused gaze of a rising leader. She no longer cowered under threats. She had become a symbol of strength and renewal. "Yesterday," Nathan continued, "Derek Owens officially pled guilty to multiple charges of fraud and extortion. As part of his plea deal, he provided evidence against Gary Miller and 2 other district managers who were running similar schemes at other locations." A quiet ripple moved through the room, not of surprise, but of relief. Justice, long delayed, had finally arrived. More importantly, Nathan added, every employee who was victimized has received full compensation, including withheld wages, forced payments, and additional damages. Anyone who left the company because of Derek's false accusations has been invited back with full back pay. Dumas, the veteran maintenance worker who had first hinted at the corruption, raised his hand. "What about those accused of theft? Their records have been wiped clean," Nathan said without hesitation. "We've also issued official apology letters and created a legal assistance fund for anyone still facing consequences from those false claims." The front door chimed. A young woman walked in, carrying a giggling toddler. Emily's face lit up as she rushed forward to hug her. "Jasmine, you actually came." "Wouldn't miss it," Jasmine replied, lifting her son. "I start work again tomorrow, thanks to the new childcare program right here at the station." Nathan stood silently for a moment, taking it all in. The old storage shed out back, once dismissed as non-essential, was now the company's first on-site childcare center. And it wouldn't be the last. It was just one of many sweeping changes inspired by Nathan's undercover experience. "Let me give you all a few more updates," Nathan said, his voice filled with hope. The door to the future was open, and this time, no one would be left behind. As the staff settled after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Nathan continued, standing under the glow of newly installed lights, his voice warm but resolute. "First change, we've completely overhauled our management oversight structure. No more district managers supervising family or close friends. All financial reporting now goes through dual independent verification." Mike, now officially promoted to shift supervisor, nodded approvingly from the back of the room. "Second, we've launched an anonymous whistleblower hotline that bypasses local management entirely. All complaints go directly to our newly created employee advocacy department." Soft murmurs of appreciation passed through the crowd. The tension they hadn't even realized they were carrying now quietly released. "Third," Nathan continued, "we've increased base pay by 18% across all positions, with longevity bonuses added. Because your work isn't just duty, it's value." This time the applause was spontaneous and sincere. Nathan held up his hand. "One more announcement remained, but perhaps the biggest change is our new periodic audit program. Every 3 months, undercover evaluators will work shifts at random stations." He smiled. "And from time to time, one of them might just be me." After the event, as customers poured into the newly remodeled store, Nathan found Emily at the coffee station, organizing sugar packets and creamers. "How's Jason doing with his new treatments?" he asked, referring to her son. Emily's face lit up. "The specialist you recommended is amazing. His asthma's finally under control, and the company's new health plan covers everything. He hasn't missed a day of school in 3 weeks. And the new apartment? We moved next weekend, she said, her voice catching slightly. I still can't believe the company has a housing assistance program. It's a quiet neighborhood, great schools, safe for kids. She looked up at him. Why did you do all this? You could have just fired Derek and Gary, then gone back to your air-conditioned office. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. The question struck something deep within him, something he hadn't allowed himself to fully confront until now. When my father started this company with a single gas station, he knew every employee by name. He understood their struggles, their families, their dreams. But as we grew, I lost that connection. Everything became numbers, quarterly reports, profit margins. He glanced around the store, now alive and filled with purpose. This experience reminded me, a company isn't spreadsheets or buildings. It's people. And I needed that wake-up call. The station door opened. A man in handcuffs, escorted by 2 police officers, stepped inside. Nathan recognized him instantly, one of Gary's cronies. The man's eyes widened when he saw Nathan. Mr. Reynolds, I can explain. Save it for the prosecutor, Nathan said calmly. I'm sure Karma knows how to balance the books. As the man was led away, Emily's phone buzzed. She checked it, then smiled brightly. Alicia. The former assistant manager Derek had fired. Just texted. She accepted the offer to manage the new station on the east side. Perfect choice. Nathan nodded. Outside, the afternoon sun glinted off the freshly painted sign, casting golden rays across a story that had finally been set right. Inside, employees moved with purpose, not from pressure, but with pride. Real smiles had returned. Kindness, trust, and hope, once lost, had been restored. Nathan stood quietly by the window, watching Emily help an elderly woman load groceries into her car. They laughed together, as if they'd known each other for years. In that moment, Nathan knew. His father, a humble man who once dreamed big from a tiny gas station, would be proud. Reynolds Fuel Stations had lost its way, but through one undercover journey, it had found its heart again.